Do you struggle with having communication with your kids? Well, this week on Motivation and Confidence, we're going to give you 3 tips to improve the relationship with your kids. Stay tuned. All right, everybody worldwide, you're now tuned into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. And I'm your host, Tom Danger. Back this week with a new episode. And as we continue on our series of 3s, this week we're going to talk about 3 ways to improve the relationship with your kids. I myself, my wife would kill me. We have 4 kids. Ages roughly 28, 24, and 14. I'm rounding it, right? And 2 boys, 2 girls. And the dynamic in raising kids, boys to girls, is very interesting. But before we go any further, please subscribe or share this video with someone that you may think that they find this information useful, and thank you as always for tuning in. 3 ways to improve the relationships with your kids. And I think that before we even get into the subject of improving the relationship with your kids, a lot of time we always forget the self-work. What work are we doing on ourselves to improve ourselves as adults before we can instill the values into our children? Now, I know my parents growing up, myself raising kids, we had one underlying value: life as well. Get the money to take care of the kids, get the money to feed the kids, get the money to put clothes on their back, get the money to make sure that we have a roof over our heads. And that's the mode that we're in. We're always in survival mode. We're always thinking scarcity. We're always thinking that we're not going to have. And now that I think back about it, thinking that way caused us to basically have a poverty mindset, because we always thought that we're going to be without. And no sooner than the money would come in, it would go right back out. And it was sort of like a mouse running on a treadmill, because you're just going and going and going, and you're exerting this energy of going to jobs that you don't really care about. You are neglecting the things that require attention first to yourself, because growing up, rarely are we given the opportunity to say, what life do we want to live? What opportunities do we want to make for ourselves? We're raised to think that we basically need to survive instead of dream, instead of being creative. Now, I'm not saying creative as in drawing pictures, creative in the sense of you can create whatever lifestyle you want. It may not come to you as easy. It may not look like the paths that other people have taken, but you can attain it. And because we have not taken that time to learn these things about ourselves, down the line, it can damage other relationships. An example with our kids, our spouse, our families. And I may break this into a series, because I would like to talk about improving relationships first with yourself, then with your family, then with your significant other. Also, as we talk today, about our kids, and then friends and coworkers, because it's different buckets across the line. And we live a life of go. It's just go mode. But do we create enriching relationships first with ourselves before we can do it with others? And I remember having a conversation with my son some time ago. I have shared the DISC assessment with pretty much everyone in my family, because It has helped me to learn more about myself and how I can become more effective in my communication, more aware of how I respond to certain things, what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I said, yo, if this is what I've learned for myself, and if this is a tool that other affluent and wealthy people have invested in, right? Listen to what I'm saying here. If there are tools out there in which people have invested in learning about themselves from an early age, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what their gifts are, why would I not share that information with my kids so that they can be the best that they can be and not have the scarcity and poverty mindset that I grew up with? Because I don't want them to live or have the same mindset that I have. I want them to have their own individual mindsets. Now, this isn't one of those conversations where I'm saying that, and most of us think this way. We want our kids to be better than us. We want our kids to have more than us. We want our kids to do X, Y, and Z because we didn't do it. And that in itself is a problem, because we can inadvertently or indirectly reward bad behavior. We can indirectly buy our way into our kids' lives as opposed to spending time with them, right? And at the same time, we're not teaching ourselves self-love because, again, we're just on the go. We're just chasing the dollar. And it's a nasty cycle that needs to change. I went off on a tangent there. But I was once having a conversation with my son after going through his assessment. And, you know, on the assessment, it has natural and adaptive, what you do without thinking about it, and how you respond to things once you're put in a situation that you're not used to being in, and how you respond to it. And one of the hardest parts about that conversation is, you know, him expressing to me in so many words, and he's not going to say this, but I won't say how I failed him as a father, but how some of my decisions and parenting techniques were not the best ones. And I'm really paraphrasing, trying not to say that I was a piece of shit in so many ways, to be honest with you. There were disciplining ways that I went about wrong. There was the absent factor because, you know, I became a father at a young age. And again, getting into that rat race, you know, 19, I got to do what I got to do. I got to make sure that my son has. I got to make sure, you know, me and my lady have stuff for our kids. And I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just thinking about go. And when you're just in go mode, your body and your mindset has a certain level of stress that it goes under. And when it has that certain level of stress, you're not in the state to where you can listen effectively, which brings us to the first point. One of the ways that you can improve the relationship with your kids is learning to listen and empathize. Sometimes as parents, the first thing that we do, every time one of our kids come to us and they say something to us, we offer a solution. And how does that help them develop problem-solving skills if every time they come to us, we're like, oh, well, here's what you should do, or you should have done, or when I was growing up, I did it this way. No. Listen. And you got to think about it. If you do that to your kids from the time that they're born until they turn, let's say, 12, right? And you're chastising them, you're giving them discipline, you're saying, well, I'm providing for you, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this and this. And they've built up a wall because every time that they try to talk, you tell them what they should be doing and what they're not doing. And then when they're not talking, you get upset at them. But we as parents have built that wall. And I'm not speaking for all parents. I'm speaking for myself and other parents that are similar to me, that come from that stern Southern hospitality background where you do as you're told or you get your ass whipped. Straight like that. And unfortunately, with my son in particular, I had that mindset with him growing up. And I think that it had its pros and cons, but more cons than pros. To where now as a man, he feels a certain amount of anger and he doesn't know how to express it. And part of that was looking at me, and look at the vicious cycle here, looking at me and as a parent, me not knowing how to express myself in words, so I broke things. So I screamed, I would yell, and then I shut down. Now, as a role model, if that's what he sees growing up, what more can I expect from him than from him to basically pick up on one of those traits instead of sitting down and talking to him? Listening. Understanding where he's coming from. Not necessarily offering the solution, but listening. Let's talk our way through it. Let me understand how your current day that you're growing up in high school or college was not the same for me when I was growing up in high school and college. That's the first thing to do. Well, when I was in high school, it was a lot tougher than that. We didn't have much and we did this and we did that. No. It's not what they're asking you. A lot of times our kids are crying for our attention and we're so busy and we're so distracted and we're so busy in go mode that we're not listening. We have to learn to first listen to ourselves, because social media will have us so distracted and we're so concerned about the reward bell and that like button and those comments from people that don't know us or barely know us, as opposed to the sincere relationships within our own household. Should not be the source of validity of how we feel good. The pros and the cons of the internet, but more than that, the first rule to improving the relationship with our kids is learning to listen and empathize. Okay? And when we're talking about the phone, and I know that I'm guilty of this, the second thing is be available without distractions. And it's to the point now where, even talking about my same son, to where if we're in the same room, it's hard for him to put his phone down. He has his phone with him. He's engaged in whatever he's into. And from time to time when he enters the room, I'm still on my phone. I'm looking at whatever I'm into. The only time, or the main rule that we have in our house with the phones, is there's no phones at the dinner table. No one can have their phone, because that is the time that we spend together. But again, we're just so entrapped with that device because it's addictive. It releases that dopamine in your brain that makes you feel good every time you see something, right? And it plays the trick on you, because whatever your thoughts are, whatever you're scrolling, suddenly that becomes a reflection of your thoughts. Whatever you interact with. Not even if you like it, but if you just watch it for a certain number of time, the system knows to show you more of that type of content. So then you get addicted to it. You ever think about it? Like, go to your Explore page in Instagram and look at all the content that's there. That's a clear indication of what you're into, right? And then the side joke for guys is, you better not go to the woman's page and look at her dressed in a bikini or something like that. Because when you go back to that Explore page, if they see that you watched one of those videos or something like that or clicked on it, it's going to be plastered all over your page. And vice versa, ladies. When you like those fellas working out in the workout gear and you want to look at those videos, it'll be all over your Explore page. But in seriousness, it can be clothing, it can be food, it can be drinks, it could be positive quotes, it could be business strategies. Whatever thoughts are on your mind is reflected on your timeline, your Twitter, TikTok for you page, all that stuff serves as a distraction. When we're together, when you're with your kids, phone should be face down or put them on do not disturb and have a conversation and listen. It's most important, and it's hard to listen when we're not listening to ourselves, but it's one of those things where you have to put the work in to make it work. And if you don't put the work in, it won't improve, but you got to put the work in. And you have to have that safe zone. The correct word I'm looking for is that you have to have a space where each of you can speak freely in a respectful manner. Because if you don't allow your kids to express themselves and speak up and understand how they think and feel, when they go out into the world and people say things to them, they're not going to stand up and defend themselves because they're just going to shut down again. Well, no. You have every right to be upset. You have every right to disagree with a person. And that starts in the home. We have to teach our kids that. This is what we have to teach our kids. Okay? No distractions. Be present. Turn that phone off, that TV off, whatever distraction you have, and have that conversation with your kids. The third thing that I really, really love to do, and hopefully more people have done this during the pandemic, is eat a meal together, right? You want to share this time to just bond, to have those conversations, and don't have the conversations that's like going to ruin your appetite, right? You want to enjoy the time. Like, you don't want to sit at the table and just wolf down your food and then go back to your phone, which is what you'll see many TV episodes about people doing that. You know, they just, I need to do something to get right back to my phone, or go out and be away. No. Take this time to sit down and chill, and preferably prepare a meal together. Involve everybody in it. No matter how young the kids are, they can put the salad in the bowl, they can pour the juice, they can set the table, they can help cook the food. Older kids take turns, help mom and dad prepare the food. Now, that don't happen in my house. I'm not going to sit here in front like it do, but it'd be nice. And let me rephrase that. On special occasions, we have had it to where the kids have, each of us, have prepared a dish to bring it to the table. But most of the time, there is dinner together at least 4 days out of the week, to where we sit down and we just kick it, and there's no phones at the table, and we just have that conversation. And, you know, sometimes there's a conversation, and other times there isn't a conversation. And let me say this, when there isn't a conversation, we shouldn't always force it or assume that something is wrong, because not always is something wrong. Did you ever think that sometimes your kids can just be introverts? And it's not that there's anything wrong. It's just that they prefer to keep their thoughts to themselves until they want to share it with somebody else. Just because you have the one kid that just wants to be the center of attention and tell everybody everything, and when you try to go around the table and you think the other kids are going to be that way and they're not, you're like, well, what's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with them. But that comes from taking the time to listen to our kids, taking the time to listen to ourselves, and figure out how each of us communicate differently and how we can be respectful of it. So again, summarizing, 3 steps to improve the relationship with your kids. 1, listen and empathize. 2, be available for them and don't have distractions. And 3, eat a meal together. And even if you don't necessarily have it in the house and you just want to grab a burger from somewhere, you go out, you grab it, and you come back and you have it, hey, that's all good too. This is Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best.